She worked in a small café tucked between two old buildings on a busy street where people came and went without noticing much around them. Every morning, she arrived before sunrise, tied her apron, and prepared the tables with quiet care. The smell of fresh bread, coffee, and warm milk filled the air as she moved from one task to another without complaint. Most customers did not even learn her name. To them, she was just the calm waitress who always seemed tired, but still managed a gentle smile. Her life had never been easy. She had grown up in a small home on the edge of the city, where books were her only escape. While other children played outside, she often stayed inside reading anything she could find. Some of those books were old, passed down from people who no longer lived in the house. Among them were strange pages filled with symbols and writing that did not match any language she had learned at school. At first, she thought they were just meaningless marks, but over time, something strange happened. Her mind began to recognize patterns, and slowly, without anyone teaching her, she started understanding parts of it. She never told anyone about this. In her world, such things had no place. She needed to earn money, survive, and support herself. So she pushed those thoughts away and focused on work. Still, sometimes at night, she would remember those strange symbols and wonder where they came from and why she could understand them so easily. The cafe where she worked was not fancy, but it had a steady flow of customers. Office workers, students, and travelers stopped by for quick meals. The owner liked her because she never caused trouble and always arrived on time. Her life followed a simple pattern, and she had accepted it as her reality. One morning, everything began to shift in a way she could not have predicted. A black car stopped outside the cafe. It was unusual for that street, where most vehicles were ordinary and worn out. People walking by noticed it, but quickly moved on. A man stepped out. He was dressed neatly, his presence calm but strong, like someone used to being obeyed without speaking much. He did not look around like others did. Instead, he walked straight inside and chose a corner table. At first, she thought he was just another customer. She served him like she served everyone else without showing curiosity. He ordered something simple, but he did not eat much. Instead, he placed a small leather folder on the table and opened it carefully. From a distance, she noticed strange writing inside. It was not English, not Arabic, not anything she had seen in daily life. But the moment her eyes caught it, something inside her reacted. Her heart slowed for a moment, and her attention locked onto the page. She continued working, but her mind kept returning to that table. The symbols looked familiar in a way she could not explain. It felt like remembering something forgotten long ago, like hearing a song you never knew you had learned. When she went to clear the table later, the folder was still open. The man was on a phone call, speaking quietly, his voice serious. She should have simply picked up the cups and walked away, but her eyes fell on the writing again. This time, she understood a small part of it. Not everything, but enough to make her pause. It was a warning, or something close to it. She quickly looked away and continued cleaning, trying not to show any reaction. But her hands felt slightly unsteady. She had never seen this language outside those old books from her childhood. It was impossible. There was no reason she should be able to understand it now, especially after so many years. The man noticed her hesitation. He did not speak immediately. He simply watched her for a moment as if trying to decide something. Then he closed the folder and left a generous tip before leaving the cafe without finishing his drink. She thought that was the end of it. But the next day he returned. And the day after that. Each time he sat in the same place, placed the same folder on the table, and observed her quietly while pretending to focus on other things. She began to feel uncomfortable, not because he was rude, but because of how carefully he watched everything around him. On the fourth visit, something changed. As she passed by his table, a page slipped slightly from the folder and fell to the side. She instinctively bent down to pick it up. In that brief moment, she saw more of the writing clearly. Her mind did not just recognize it this time. It translated it almost instantly. A sentence formed in her thoughts without effort. It is not safe to speak the truth aloud. Her breath caught slightly, but she controlled her reaction. She placed the page back and walked away quickly, her heart beating faster than before. She told herself it meant nothing, that she was imagining things. But deep inside, she knew something unusual was happening. That evening, as she finished her shift and cleaned the counters, the man did something unexpected. He approached the counter instead of leaving directly. The cafe was almost empty, and the lights were dim. He spoke quietly. "You understood it." It was not a question. She froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. For the first time, she looked directly at him. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried something heavy, like someone who had been carrying secrets for too long. "I don't know what you mean," she replied carefully. He did not push her immediately. Instead, he placed a folded piece of paper on the counter. "Read it when you are alone," he said. "If you truly understand it, you will know why I am here." Then he left. That night, she could not sleep. The paper sat on her small table, untouched for hours. She kept telling herself not to open it. It was safer not to get involved in anything strange. Her life was already difficult enough, but curiosity slowly overcame fear. Finally, she unfolded the paper. The moment her eyes touched the writing, everything changed. The symbols were the same ancient language, but this time they formed something more structured, more meaningful. And just like before, her mind translated it naturally. It spoke of something hidden, something protected, a truth buried within a powerful family line, linked to forgotten history and dangerous knowledge. It mentioned a key, not a physical one, but a person, someone who could understand what others could not. Her hands went cold as she read further. The message suggested that whoever controlled this knowledge could change things that should never be changed. And there were people who would do anything to keep it hidden. She slowly lowered the paper, her mind overwhelmed. None of this made sense. She was just a waitress. But then she remembered the man, his calm behavior, the way he watched her, and the certainty in his voice. "You understood it." For the first time, she began to realize that her simple life was no longer simple. Something had been waiting quietly in her world, something connected to her in a way she did not yet understand. And now it had finally found her. The next morning did not feel normal to her. She woke up earlier than usual, even though she had barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the words from the paper again and again. Every time she closed her eyes, those strange symbols appeared behind her thoughts, as if they were now part of her memory in a way she could not remove. She tried to convince herself it was just stress or imagination, but something inside her knew it was not. She got ready quietly and left for work like she always did. The streets were still half asleep, with only a few people walking and shops slowly opening. The air felt cooler than usual, and even the cafe seemed different when she arrived. It looked the same, but her attention was sharper now. Small things she never noticed before suddenly felt important. She cleaned the tables slowly, her mind distracted. Every sound from the door made her look up. She was not expecting anything, yet she kept waiting for something to happen. Around mid-morning, a familiar black car stopped again outside. Her hands paused for a moment when she saw it. She did not need to guess who it was. A few seconds later, the same man entered the cafe. He looked as calm as before, but this time, there was a slight urgency in his steps. He did not sit down immediately. Instead, he walked straight to the counter where she was standing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The cafe was not busy at that time. Only a few customers sat far away, talking quietly. The world around them felt distant. Finally, he spoke in a low voice. "You read it." It was not a question again. It was a statement, as if he already knew the answer. She looked at him carefully. She wanted to deny it, but she could not find the strength to lie. "Yes," she said quietly. For a moment, he simply observed her reaction. Then he nodded slightly, like he had confirmed something important. "You are not supposed to be here," he said. Her expression tightened. "What does that even mean?" He hesitated before answering, as if choosing his words carefully. "That writing you saw, it is not just language. It is a code, a very old one. Most people cannot even see it properly, let alone understand it." She crossed her arms slightly, still unsure whether she should trust him. I don't understand why you are telling me this, she replied. The man looked around briefly, then lowered his voice even more. Because you reacted to it without being taught. That is not normal. It means you are connected to it in some way. Her heart beat a little faster, but she tried to stay calm. That's impossible, she said. I am just a waitress. He did not argue. Instead, he slowly placed another small document on the counter. It was different from the one before. This one looked older, with faded edges and careful markings. I need your help, he said simply. She stared at the document without touching it. I don't even know you, she replied. You don't need to know me, he said. You only need to understand what this is. There was something serious in his tone now, something heavier than before. It was no longer just curiosity. Felt like urgency. She finally picked up the document. The moment she did, she felt that strange familiar sensation again. The symbols were the same type as before, but more complex. Her mind slowly began to translate parts of it without effort. It was like her brain was unlocking something she had never learned, yet somehow already knew. The text referred to a hidden record, something stored away from the public world. It spoke about a family line, carefully protected over generations. There were mentions of sealed information, locked locations, and a warning that not all knowledge should be exposed without preparation. She lowered the paper slightly, confused and unsettled. This is about your family? She asked. He nodded. My family has carried this for a long time, he said. But I am not the only one who knows it exists. There are others who want it. And they are getting closer. She looked at him carefully. And what does that have to do with me? He paused before answering. Because you are the first person I have met who can read it without training. Her grip tightened slightly on the document. That doesn't mean anything, she said. It means everything, he replied calmly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The cafe noise continued around them, but it felt far away. She placed the document back on the counter. I don't want to be involved in anything dangerous, she said firmly. The man nodded slightly, as if he expected that answer. I understand, he said. But you already are involved. That sentence stayed in the air longer than anything else. Before she could respond, he placed a small card next to the document. If you change your mind, he said, come to this address. Then he turned and left without waiting for another word. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the counter. The card was simple with no fancy design. Just an address written clearly. The rest of her shift passed slowly. She tried to focus on work, but her thoughts kept returning to what he had said. You are already involved. It repeated in her mind like a warning she could not ignore. When her shift finally ended, she walked home under a sky that was turning orange. The streets were busier now, but she felt distant from everything around her. At home, she placed the document and the card on her small table. She sat down and stared at them for a long time. Part of her wanted to throw everything away and forget it ever happened. Her life was simple before this. She worked, she earned, she survived. That was enough. But another part of her was already curious. How could she understand something she had never learned? Why did those symbols feel so familiar? And why did this man seem so certain about her? Hours passed. Night came. She did not realize when she started reading the document again. This time she noticed more details. The structure of the writing seemed to respond to her focus. As she paid attention, more meaning appeared in her mind. It was like the language was unlocking itself slowly, piece by piece. It mentioned something called the sealed truth. It was described as something powerful enough to change how people understood history. It also warned that if it was revealed incorrectly, it could cause serious consequences. She leaned back in her chair, feeling overwhelmed. None of this made sense for her life. But one thing was clear. This was not random, and somehow she was part of it. Outside her window, the city lights flickered quietly. Life continued as usual for everyone else. But for her, something had already begun to shift in a way that could not be reversed. The next day, she tried to act normal. She woke up early again, got ready, and went to work as if nothing had changed. But deep inside, she knew something had changed already. The documents, the strange language, the man in the black car. It all stayed in her mind like a quiet shadow that would not leave. At the cafe, she moved through her usual routine. She cleaned tables, arranged cups, and greeted customers the same way she always did. But her attention kept drifting. Every time the door opened, her heart reacted slightly, even when it was just an ordinary customer. She hated that feeling. It was like waiting for something she did not fully understand. By mid-morning, she saw the black car again. This time, she did not feel surprise. Instead, she felt a strange kind of calm, mixed with fear she was trying to hide. The man entered the cafe like before, but something was different. He was not just observing anymore. He looked more serious, more focused, like time was becoming important. He sat at his usual table but did not open any documents this time. Instead, he simply waited. She served him coffee without speaking much. But this time, he did not pretend to be an ordinary customer. When she placed the cup on the table, he gently pushed it aside and looked directly at her. "We need to talk properly," he said. Her hands paused slightly. "I am working," she replied. He nodded, understanding, but did not move. "This cannot wait too long," he said quietly. She looked around. A few customers were sitting, but no one was paying attention to them. Still, she did not feel comfortable talking openly. "After my shift," she said finally. He agreed without arguing. The rest of her workday felt longer than usual. Every hour dragged slowly. Her mind was not on her tasks anymore. She kept thinking about what he might say. A part of her wanted to leave everything and walk away before things got deeper. But another part of her was already too involved to turn back easily. When her shift ended, she stepped outside the cafe. The evening air felt cooler, and the streets were slowly becoming quiet. The man was waiting near the black car. He did not rush her. He simply stood there, as if he had been expecting her decision all along. "You came," he said. She nodded slightly but did not speak. He opened the car door for her. "I want to show you something," he said. She hesitated. Getting into a stranger's car was not something she normally would do. But this situation was no longer normal in any way. After a short pause, she got in. The car ride was silent for a while. The city passed by outside, lights slowly turning on as evening grew darker. She looked out the window, thinking about how quickly her life had started changing in ways she never expected. Finally, she spoke. "Where are we going?" He kept his eyes on the road. "To a place where you can understand this better," he said. She frowned slightly. "I already told you I don't understand what is happening," she replied. He nodded. "That is exactly why you need to see it," he said. After some time, the car left the main roads and entered a quieter area. Buildings became fewer. Streets became narrower. Eventually, they stopped in front of an old structure that looked like it had not been used properly for a long time. It was not a house or a shop. It looked more like an old storage place, hidden away from normal attention. She stepped out slowly. "This is it?" she asked. He nodded and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the place was dimly lit. Dust covered parts of the floor, and the air felt still, like it had not been disturbed for a long time. But what caught her attention were the walls. There were markings on them, not random scratches but organized symbols. The same language she had seen before. Her breath slowed slightly. "Why is this here?" she asked. He looked at her carefully. "Because this is where part of it was stored," he replied. She moved closer to the wall, studying the symbols. As she focused, something strange happened again. Her mind started recognizing meaning without effort. It was like the language was responding to her presence. She stepped back slightly, surprised. "This is not normal," she said quietly. The man nodded. "No, it is not," he agreed. She turned to him. "How can I read this? I have never studied it." He hesitated before answering. "That is what I have been trying to understand," he said. "This language is not meant to be easy. Only certain people can access it naturally. And you are one of them." She shook her head slightly. "That doesn't make sense," she said. He walked a little deeper into the room and picked up an old folder from a table. He opened it carefully and handed it to her. "Look at this," he said. She took it slowly. Inside were records, notes, and copies of similar symbols. As she read them, the meanings formed again in her mind. It was not forced. It happened naturally, like remembering something she had always known. The text mentioned people who had shown early understanding of the language without training. It also mentioned that such individuals were rare and often connected to something unknown in their background. She lowered the folder. "This is not just about language," she said quietly. He nodded. "No," he replied. "It is about what the language protects." She looked at him, trying to understand. "And what does it protect?" she asked. He paused for a moment. "A secret that has been buried for a long time," he said. "Something tied to power, history, and decisions that were never meant to be revisited." She felt a slight pressure in her chest. "I don't want anything like that," she said honestly. He looked at her calmly. "I know," he said, "but sometimes life does not ask what we want." She turned away slightly, trying to process everything. "I am just a waitress," she said again, almost as if reminding herself. He spoke softly. "Not anymore," he said. Those words stayed in the air. She looked at the symbols again. This time, instead of confusion, she felt something else. Not fear exactly, but awareness. As if something hidden in her life had finally started to surface. She slowly closed the folder. "I need time," she said. He nodded immediately. "That is fair," he replied. But before they could leave, something unexpected happened. A faint sound came from outside the building. Footsteps. Not just one person. The man's expression changed instantly. He looked toward the entrance. "They found us sooner than expected," he said quietly. She felt her heart tighten. "Who?" she asked. But he did not answer immediately. Instead, he motioned for her to stay quiet and move back slightly. The calm atmosphere inside the old building suddenly felt different. Whatever secret had been waiting here was no longer hidden. And now someone else had arrived looking for it. She stood still in the dim light of the old building, her breathing slower than her racing thoughts. The sound of footsteps outside grew clearer now. It was not just one person anymore. There were at least 2 or 3, maybe more. The air inside the place suddenly felt heavier, like even the dust was waiting for something to happen. The man beside her didn't panic, but his body shifted slightly, alert and focused. He gently motioned for her to stay behind him. "Don't move unless I tell you," he said in a low voice. She nodded, even though her heart was beating fast. She did not understand everything, but she understood one thing clearly now. This was no longer just about language or documents. Something serious was unfolding, and she had already been pulled into it. The footsteps stopped outside the entrance. For a moment, everything went silent. Then came a soft knock on the door. Not loud, not aggressive, just controlled. The man looked at her once, then slowly moved toward the side of the room, closer to a stack of old wooden shelves. He didn't open the door. Instead, he waited. The knock came again. A voice followed, calm but firm. "We know you are inside. There is no need to make this difficult." The words were simple, but they carried pressure. She instinctively stepped back, pressing closer to the wall. She had never been in a situation like this before. Her life had always been predictable: work, home, sleep, repeat. Now everything felt unfamiliar and uncertain. The man finally spoke, his voice steady. "This place is not yours to enter." There was a short pause outside. Then the voice returned. "We are not here for conflict. We are here for what belongs to us." She looked at him, confused. "What are they talking about?" she whispered. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he slowly walked toward her and spoke quietly. "They are not supposed to know about you yet," he said. Her eyebrows tightened. "Me?" she asked softly. "Why me again?" Before he could respond, a faint scraping sound came from the door. Someone was trying to open it without force. They were being careful, not rushing. The man looked around the room quickly, as if calculating options. There is a side exit, he said. Stay close. She followed him without argument. The situation had already gone beyond her understanding. At this point, trusting him felt like the only choice she had. They moved quietly through the dim space, stepping carefully to avoid making noise. The building had a second small door at the back, partly hidden behind old crates and metal sheets. The man pushed it open slowly. Cold air rushed in. Outside was a narrow path leading behind the structure, surrounded by uneven ground and scattered stones. There were no streetlights here, only faint light from distant buildings. They stepped out just as a louder sound came from inside. The main door had been forced open. She turned back instinctively, but the man gently guided her forward. Don't look back, he said. They moved quickly along the path, staying low and close to the shadows. She could hear distant voices now, but they were not chasing immediately. It seemed like they were checking inside first. After walking a short distance, they stopped behind a broken wall structure. She finally spoke, her voice slightly shaky. What is going on? Who are they? He looked at her for a moment, then sighed slightly. They are part of a group that has been searching for what I carry, he said. She frowned. And what exactly do you carry? She asked. He hesitated, then answered carefully. Information, but not ordinary information. Something that was hidden a long time ago. She shook her head slightly. I don't understand why I am involved in this, she said. He looked at her directly now. Because you can read what they cannot, he said. And that makes you important to both sides. The words made her uncomfortable. I don't want to be important in anything like this, she said honestly. He nodded. I know, he replied. But that choice is not fully in your hands anymore. A cold silence followed. She looked down at her hands, trying to process everything. Just days ago, her biggest worry was serving customers and earning enough money. Now she was standing in the middle of something she never asked for. After a moment, she spoke again. What is inside those documents? Why is it so important? He looked around carefully before answering. It is a record, he said. A record of things that were hidden on purpose. Decisions, locations, and knowledge that could change how people see history. She listened quietly, trying to understand. And the language? She asked. He nodded slightly. The language is the key, he said. Without it, the records cannot be understood properly. She looked at him closely. And I can understand it without learning? She said. Yes, he replied. That answer made her silent again. She did not feel special. She felt confused, like someone had placed her in a story she did not choose. A distant sound came from the direction of the building. Voices again. They were still inside, searching. The man gently signaled her to move further away. They began walking again, this time toward a safer area. The night air was colder now, and the silence around them felt uneasy. After some time, they reached a more open street. It was still quiet, but safer than the hidden path. They stopped near a corner where old streetlights flickered slightly. She finally asked the question that had been building inside her. Why me? Out of all people, why would I be able to read something like this? He looked at her for a long moment before replying. Sometimes patterns appear in ways we do not fully understand, he said. But what matters is not how it started. What matters is what it leads to. She shook her head slightly. That is not an answer, she said. He gave a small, tired expression. It is the only one I have right now, he replied. She leaned slightly against the wall nearby, trying to calm her thoughts. Her life had turned upside down in such a short time that it felt unreal. After a pause, she spoke again. If I walk away from this, will it stop? He looked at her honestly. I don't think it will, he said. Not anymore. That answer stayed with her longer than anything else. They stood there quietly for a moment, listening to distant city sounds. Life continued around them, unaware of what was happening in this hidden layer beneath normal life. Finally, he spoke again. There is a place we need to reach next, he said. She looked at him with hesitation. Is it safe? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. Then he said softly, safer than staying still. She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them again. Slowly, she nodded. Not because she felt ready, but because turning back no longer felt possible. And as they walked forward into the quiet streets, she realized something she had not accepted yet. Her ordinary life was already gone. They did not speak much while walking through the quiet streets. The night felt longer than usual, as if time itself was moving slower. The lights from small shops were dim, and most people had already gone home. Every sound echoed a little more clearly than normal. Footsteps, distant traffic, even the wind moving between buildings. She kept walking beside him, her thoughts heavy. A few hours ago, she was still serving coffee in a small café. Now she was moving through unknown streets with a man she barely understood, involved in something she never asked for. After some time, she finally spoke. "Where are we going now?" she asked. He did not slow down. "Somewhere quieter," he said. "Somewhere they cannot easily find us again." She looked at him. "You keep saying they," she said. "Who exactly are they?" He paused slightly before answering. "People who believe that information belongs only in certain hands," he said. "And they do not like when it is disturbed." She frowned. "That still doesn't explain why they care about me," she replied. He glanced at her briefly. "They care because you can read what they cannot control," he said. That answer did not comfort her. It only made her feel more uncertain. They continued walking until they reached a smaller part of the city. The buildings here were older, and the streets were narrower. It felt like a place that was slowly forgotten by time. Finally, they stopped in front of an old guest house. It was not large, but it looked safe enough to stay unnoticed. "This will do for now," he said. She looked at the building, then at him. "You are sure?" she asked. He nodded. "For tonight," he said. Inside, the guest house was quiet. The owner did not ask many questions. He simply handed them a room key and went back to his desk. The room was simple. 2 beds, a small table, and a window facing the street. Nothing special, but it felt safer than outside. She sat on the edge of one bed, tired but unable to relax. Her mind was still full of questions. He placed a small bag on the table and sat on the chair near the window. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. "I still don't understand what is happening," she said. He nodded slowly. "That is normal," he replied. "This situation is not something people usually understand quickly." She looked at him carefully. "You speak like I was chosen for this," she said. He hesitated. "In a way," he replied, "but not in the way you think." She leaned forward slightly. "Then explain it properly," she said. He took a slow breath. "The language you can read. It is part of a system created a long time ago," he said. "Most people cannot access it. It was never meant to be widely understood." She listened quietly. "But you can," he continued. "Without training, without exposure. That is what makes you different." She shook her head slightly. "I don't feel different," she said. He gave a small, tired smile. "Most important things don't feel important at first," he replied. She looked down at her hands. "I was just doing my job," she said softly. "Serving tables. Living normally." He nodded. "And now you are connected to something bigger than that," he said. She leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. "This is too much," she said honestly. He did not argue. "I know," he said. A silence followed again. Outside the window, the street was quiet. A few people passed by, unaware of the tension inside that small room. After a while, he stood up and walked toward the table. "I need to show you something," he said. She opened her eyes. He took out one of the documents from his bag and placed it in front of her. "This is part of what I mentioned," he said. She hesitated, then slowly looked at it. As soon as her eyes focused on the writing, the familiar sensation returned. The symbols were complex, but her mind began to recognize meaning again without effort. This time, the text felt heavier. It was not just information. It was instructions, references to locations, patterns, and something that seemed like a map hidden inside the writing. Her expression changed slightly. "This is not just text," she said. He nodded. "It is layered information," he explained. Only certain readers can access all of it. She looked up at him. And you want me to help you understand it? She asked. Yes, he said simply. She paused. Why trust me? She asked again. He looked at her directly. Because I have no other choice, he replied. That answer stayed in the air. She looked back at the document. The more she focused, the more details appeared in her mind. It felt strange, like unlocking something hidden inside her thoughts. But at the same time, it made her uneasy. What if I misread it? She asked. He shook his head. You won't, he said. Not with this language. Before she could respond, a sudden sound came from outside. A vehicle passed slowly near the guest house. Both of them became silent immediately. He walked to the window and carefully looked outside without showing himself fully. His expression changed slightly. She noticed it. What is it? She asked quietly. He did not answer right away. Then he stepped back from the window. They are getting closer, he said. Her stomach tightened. Already? She asked. He nodded. They are searching in patterns now, he explained. And we stayed too long in one direction. She stood up slowly. Then what do we do? She asked. He looked at her seriously. We move again, he said. But not immediately. We wait until it is safer. She frowned. Waiting feels dangerous, she said. He agreed. But moving blindly is worse, he replied. Another silence followed. She sat back down, trying to calm her breathing. Her life had become a cycle of uncertainty and movement, with no clear direction. After a moment, she spoke again. If I can read this language, does that mean I can also understand everything in it? She asked. He nodded. In time, he said. She looked at him carefully. And what happens when I do? He hesitated before answering. Then you will understand why people are looking for it, he said. That answer did not make her feel better. Outside, the night grew quieter again. The vehicle sound had disappeared, but neither of them relaxed fully. The documents stayed on the table between them, like something waiting to be fully opened. She stared at them for a long time. Slowly, something inside her shifted. Not acceptance, not understanding, but awareness. That whatever she had stepped into was no longer something she could simply walk away from. And somewhere outside, in the quiet city, other people were also moving closer, quietly, carefully, and with purpose. The night inside the small guest house felt longer than usual. She could not sleep properly. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind returned to the symbols from the documents. It was no longer just curiosity. It felt like her thoughts were being pulled in that direction again and again, as if her mind had started remembering something it was never supposed to know. The man stayed near the window for a long time, watching outside in silence. He did not look relaxed. His attention kept shifting between the street and the room, like he was waiting for something to happen. She finally broke the silence. Are they still out there? She asked quietly. He nodded slightly without turning away from the window. Not close, but nearby, he said. She sat on the edge of the bed, tired but alert. Why don't they just come directly? She asked. He turned slightly toward her. Because they are careful, he replied. And they don't want to reveal themselves too early. That answer made her even more uneasy. After a moment, she looked at the documents on the table. They were still there, untouched since earlier. She felt a strange pull toward them again, like before. But this time, she resisted it. I don't think I can keep doing this, she said honestly. He finally moved away from the window and sat down across from her. I know this is overwhelming, he said calmly. But we are close to understanding the full meaning now. She looked at him directly. Close to what exactly? She asked. He paused. The final part of the message, he said. Her expression tightened slightly. There's more? She asked. He nodded. There is always more, he said. A long silence followed. The room felt small, almost too quiet. She took a slow breath. I didn't ask for any of this, she said. He looked at her with understanding. Most people don't ask for the things that change their lives, he replied. That line stayed between them for a moment. She stood up and walked slowly toward the table. She picked up the main document again. Her fingers touched the edge carefully. As soon as she focused on the symbols, her mind reacted instantly. The language unfolded in her thoughts again, clearer than before. But this time something was different. It was not just information. Felt like structure. A pattern connecting everything she had seen before. She slowly spoke, reading without fully realizing it. "It is not only a record," she said quietly. "It is a guide." The man looked at her immediately. "Yes," he said. She continued, her voice still soft. "It speaks about protection, and something that was sealed intentionally." He nodded again. "You are seeing it correctly," he said. She looked up. "And the key?" she asked. He hesitated. "That is what we were missing until now," he said. She frowned slightly. "I don't understand," she said. He leaned forward. "The language itself is not the key," he explained. "You are." She froze slightly at that. "What does that even mean?" she asked. He took a slow breath. "It means the system responds to you," he said. "Not because you studied it, but because you can naturally access it." She shook her head slightly. "That sounds impossible," she said. He replied calmly. "But it is happening." Before she could respond, a faint sound came from outside again. Both of them went silent immediately. Footsteps, closer than before. The man stood up quickly and moved toward the window again, carefully looking outside. His expression changed. "They are here," he said. Her body tensed instantly. "Inside the building?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not yet," he said. "But surrounding it." Her heart beat faster. "What do we do now?" she asked. He turned toward her. "We finish it," he said. She looked confused. "Finish what?" she asked. He pointed at the document. "The final translation," he said. She hesitated. "Now?" she asked. He nodded. "If we leave it incomplete, we won't understand what they are actually after," he said. Another sound came from outside. This time it was clearer. People moving carefully. She swallowed her fear and sat back down slowly. Her hands trembled slightly as she focused again on the document. The symbols appeared in her mind again, but this time they formed a clearer message. Felt like layers unlocking one by one. She began reading softly. "It speaks of a hidden record," she said. "But not just history. It mentions control over knowledge itself." The man listened carefully. She continued. "It says, if opened without balance, it will cause confusion and conflict." She paused. "And there is something about a final seal," she added. The man nodded. "Yes," he said quietly. "That is what they are trying to reach." She looked at him. "And you?" she asked. "What do you want from it?" He looked at her for a long moment. "I want to stop it from being used the wrong way," he said. Her expression softened slightly. "And I am just helping you read it?" she asked. He shook his head. "You are more than that," he said. "You are the only one who can fully complete it." She leaned back, overwhelmed again. Outside, the footsteps grew closer. The man moved quickly to the door and checked it carefully. "We don't have much time," he said. She stood up slowly. "What happens if they get inside?" she asked. He looked at her seriously. "Then we lose control of what is revealed," he said. That made her silent for a moment. She looked at the document again. Something inside her changed at that moment. Fear was still there, but now there was something else too. A strange sense of responsibility she never expected to feel. "I will try," she said quietly. He nodded. "That is enough," he said. She closed her eyes for a moment and focused completely on the symbols. The language formed again in her mind, but now it connected everything she had seen before. The scattered pieces were finally coming together. Her voice became steady. "It is not just a record," she said. "It is a warning system, designed to protect knowledge from misuse." The man listened without interrupting. She continued, "And the final seal is not a place. It is a condition. It activates only when the message is fully understood." The man's expression changed slightly. "You are right," he said quietly. She opened her eyes. What happens when it activates? She asked. He paused. It decides what is allowed to be known, he said. A heavy silence followed. Outside, the movement stopped for a moment. Then came another sound. This time, the door of the guest house. Someone was trying to enter. The man moved instantly, guiding her toward the back corner of the room. We are out of time, he said. She looked at him one last time. What now? She asked. He met her eyes. Now you decide what happens next, he said. She stood still for a moment, holding the document. The footsteps outside grew louder, and in that moment, she realized something clearly. Her life had changed completely, not because she chose it, but because something inside her had always been waiting to be discovered.